Hello, everybody. I am David. I am the personal trainer here with Balance and Birch, and this is JD Tremblay. Did you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
I'm Jason Tremblay, and I am the director of high performance at Hungry Warrior Academy, where we help men build physically, mentally, and also spiritually through our DECA system.
And he's being humble. He's leaving out the fact he's a phenomenal athlete, has done many athletic feats and crushed all of them. But the biggest reason why we're having a conversation today is because a lot of people have different methodologies and different philosophies when it comes to optimizing, when it comes to building structure outside. Like I know me and JD had military service, so we had exterior structure in our lives, or some people had school and college, and how to get structure in your life after that. So ultimately, what we're going to talk about is the ways that we found best navigating that. And yeah, we might disagree, we might agree, but the fun part is going to be having the conversation and figuring out how you all feel.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, of course. So the first question that I had for you is, how do you navigate your hunger for more with your aspirations to be content? And I know we talked a little bit about this before, but I'm going to grill you a little bit deeper on it this time now that we're recording.
All right. The idea of being content is that you're able to enjoy the moment, but you're never satisfied. And so there's a difference between the two where, for me, right, I was at the Trail Half Marathon World Championship a few weeks ago, and I finished fifth. And fifth is not a podium. Fifth does not get recognition. Fifth does not amount to how much I trained. And so I finished fifth. And I was content to be at the World Championship, content that I was not injured, content that I participated. But then people put too much emphasis on the part where you are comfortable, which is very comfortable to someone that caters to your feelings, right? And so the satisfaction part is that I am not satisfied about my performance. I put too much emphasis on work versus the intensity of my workouts. My nutrition played a lot into my training, and so I neglected that. So there's that deep sense of hunger to develop to achieve that next level. So it's not satisfied by, well, I finished first or I finished second, or you're always constantly trying to improve. And so the one of the ways that I can explain it is the idea and between feelings and emotions. So feelings are an experience of life. I'm content with happiness today, but it might be a sad situation, but I'm happy. So it's just an experience of life. Like I'm experiencing life, but I'm not basing my whole decision and my entire day based on my feelings versus emotion. And emotion is completely different, where now you are able to gear your life towards it, because emotions, you can calculate it. If I surprise you, then heart rate goes higher, pupils are dilated. I can calculate all of those, and then now I can make better decisions. And so if you're basing your decisions based on your emotional state, because you're able to calculate it and you're able to regulate these factors and not your feelings, then that would be one example that I could provide on how to cultivate that hunger.
Yeah, and using those things that kind of would be more so attributed as weaknesses and expecting them. This is going to come. How do I best prepare myself for them? I think that's a really good outlook on things, especially because I find myself, and now I put myself in a different category, and I think many roads lead to Rome, where I find myself in life comes in phases. And so I find myself like I'll have content phases and I'll have phases where I'm super driven. Would you say it's, when you're describing it, it's more so like I'm coming into a phase, or where you're saying like, it's like, this is a constant, like I am in a constant hunger and I'm content because you're not married to these things, right? Like you have multiple eggs in multiple baskets. Would you say it's more of like a perpetual thing for you, striving and pushing for these things? Or does contentness kind of come in a phase where you're like, let's really focus being content for a month and a half, 2 months? Because I know that for me, it really helps me wind down when I go through a period of striving. That's almost what I call it. Is it's a necessary recharge period for now I know I'm on the go. I'm feeling my motivation. I'm feeling driven. I'm feeling disciplined, and I've already rested, so I'm good to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would see it as more of a perpetual, so the latter, and that's because again, you're constantly improving. So the way of being content is all the time. Like I am all the time content. I'm in that period of life. I am content. So yes, it's fifth. I'm still content, and I could have not even finished it. I'm gonna be content because that's what I was given. That's the output that I delivered. So I'll be content no matter what. But the problem that I have is when people are either comparing it to others and saying, well, I'm not content because of that person finishing first, or I could have been. So there's that difference. And that's why I said, well, content versus satisfaction. So I'm never satisfied. No, I will never be satisfied. And that's like food, essentially, right? When you're looking at food, you're hungry. Well, you're never completely satisfied. Yes, in that particular meal, you're going to be satisfied because you overate or overindulge. But even then, you're going to learn something in that process because, well, you overate. And so maybe you're going to be sick as a result, or maybe you understand that eating certain type of food creates certain types of inflammation. And so again, that is the learning process. That satisfaction, that hunger is always there. And you wake up in the morning, you will be hungry. You will be hungry for some type of food. But it's understanding what type of food you should be eating that create that level of inflammation, so you can always improve on that sense. And the only level to be able to improve is the emotional state, right? Which I explained, or being able to look at these facts versus and logic and science versus just looking at your feelings. Like now you're not just eating a dessert because, well, you feel like it. Now you're eating a dessert because there is a process to it, right? If you are designed to go and you're an athlete, and right, if you're not an athlete and you just want to and you are somewhat healthy, eating that dessert is based on your feelings. And then there are these times where I indulge in it, but that's an experience of life. I'm experiencing food, right? I'm experiencing that hunger. Now that's being content. So whether I eat the cake because I feel like it, or whether I eat the cake because I am going to use it to increase my carbs intake and use it to go to the gym right after and then burn it off because it's quick fuel, then I'm still going to be content. So it's still an ongoing process.
And that's one thing that I really like about how you phrase it, because you don't marry the two ideas. My hunger is in a correlation to my contentness, and I think that's super important because especially when I start off with people, one of the first things I tell them is identify exactly where you are. Be so not critical, but critique yourself. Be honest with yourself. Give yourself an honest review, because until you know actually where you are and why these patterns are happening the way they are, you can't make a plan and then build to where you want to go. And I've always found you have to become content with it. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting yourself. Like, I am this way a little bit. How do I make a plan to not be that way, or to not have that show off in every way? Like, I know for me, I love sweets more than anything in the world, especially fresh baked goods. And I would eat compulsively. And I suffered all the health effects that came with that, especially in high school. I would always feel bad and groggy. And I worked out extensively, and I was always a little overweight, which I always made me in my head. And it was because I couldn't actually come to terms with the fact that I had a problem with sweets. I would lie to myself. I'd be like, oh, well, I had 4 cookies and I work out. And I think where you're getting at is I have an honesty with where I am, and that gives you the contentness to say, that is why I'm striving, and I'm going to keep trying to get better. So I really like the way you phrase that. Another thing that I have that I wanted to ask you is contentness the number one thing that's driving your optimization? When I say that, is it your desire to be content or your desire to do great things that makes you make yourself the best version of yourself?
Well, they both have their own path. It would be like asking the question, what's more important, discipline or motivation? And then many people will say, well, it's about discipline, much better. Well, then again, I would say, which one is better for you? Is it your endocrine system or is it your nervous system? They're both regulated to operate at different intensities. So now you have your nervous system, which is quick, and your endocrine system, which takes much longer. The motivation is quick, and then the discipline takes much longer. So is it content? Right? So the question is posed in a way where both would be equally important.
I think that's really important too, because I think it really sets in stone the idea that these are two separate concepts, that you're growing
Yeah.
these separately. So how do you, because I personally, I am not default content. I don't wake up in the morning and be super content. I find myself journaling. I find myself reading quotes. So what are the ways that you and yourself throughout your day, or maybe it comes naturally to you, tell us more about that. How are you feeling content? Do you do anything? Is there anything in your routine that you have to do, or does it come naturally?
No, it doesn't come naturally because the human body is not designed for thriving. The human body is designed for survival. And so we have to learn these patterns. Now, I'll speak about it from a Christian point of view because I am Christian and our company has Christian principles. But this is applicable for any faith, any religion, or anyone listening, whether you're a man or women. So meditation is a huge part of my day, and so I start my day with I try best, right? Like when I say I start my day, this is not a every single day. It will happen. We had an event this weekend, so we had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I did not wake up in the morning and then read my Bible and then spent 12 minutes just meditating. I did. Okay, so this is not something that did happen. Okay, there are other parts of my life that will happen for sure, but meditation is a huge part. There are several different ways of meditation. And the main part that people have to understand is that when the brain shift between brain waves, it's been studied with EEGs in the book How God Rewires Your Brain. And scientists that, again, when they say God, those guys are not Christian. The entire book is not based on Christianity. They pick different faiths and then they analyze them through EEGs or electroencephalogram that calculates how brain waves operate, and they prove that it's a minimum of 12 minutes that you require to shift from one wave to another. And so there are several ways that people can implement it in their life right now. One is the 12-minute minimum, and then there is the passive and active. And so passive is you are going to break it down into two, where you're either allowing your mind to just free flow. That's the one I prefer. And then there are other people that just focus on one aspect. So focus on their breathing or focus. I tend not to do that. That's because I try to focus on several things throughout the day anyway, so might as well just allow my brain to just go free flowing for 12 minutes. And then there is the active side that many coach out there are forgetting is the aspect of that zone one, right? Which, if you're not familiar with it, like I know you are definitely, right? But for those that don't know, that are listening, zone one is you're able to perform the activity that has been given to you, and you're also able to have a coherent conversation with the other person. So you're not out of breath. You're able to say, for some people, it's going for a hike. Okay, that would be zone one for them, for them. But there are other people just going for a walk 10 minutes And then after 10 minutes, they're out of breath. So maybe 5 minutes, or even just getting off the couch. It depends on your level of fitness and how your body is designed at that moment. And that's a ballpark for zone. Okay. So that would be the active component. I tend to do some rock climbing sometimes. I like rock climbing. So it plays on your spatial recognition, where you cannot look at your feet, but it has to be placed on a certain hold. So I like that. So those are some types of ways that I use in my daily life, even today.
Yeah, yeah. And I really like that you have the inactive and the active, because I'm a big proponent of, we have to use our bodies, we have to push our bodies. If you don't use it, you lose it. But I find so many people kind of neglect the importance of the mental growth as well. And that's why I really love your approach that you said that you do with meditation, which is like, I'm going to let my brain run with this. Because I know for me, I will do like Wim Hof breathing and stuff like that, and it'll be great for me. I'll never track Wim Hof breathing at all. It's wonderful. But my best moments in myself, where I bring myself to say, this is why this really matters in my life. I guess practicing the mindfulness in my meditation is my favorite thing, because I always ask myself, instead of limiting thoughts, I'm going to invite them. Why, of all things in the world, while I'm sitting down here and thinking, did I think of being a son? Did I think of a friendship that I have? And oftentimes it's because you actually need to think about that and put some excess thought to it. So that's what I use meditation a lot for, is to grow and I guess refine my own philosophical beliefs, to identify and address relationships that need work. Because again, I think that helps with the contentness. Because if I have my life in order, then I can get to the gym, and the gym isn't this daunting thing that's weighing on me because the rest of my life is stressful. So I really like that approach, where it's inactive and active. I've personally never heard it put that way, but I really like that.
Yeah, it's one way to do it. To me, I give it all to God, right? To me, I understand that there are variables that I can control. For example, like my physical state, I can improve it. For my mental state, I can improve it. Certain types of supplements or the mindfulness. But there are other variables that I will not be able to control. Even in the EpicDeca, I say that physically, there's a lot of people that would be able to do all of the races that I've done. If you're adding to the pool of individuals that would be competing, the mental side, I would say yes, there are some people, I would say at least more than 3, that would complete more than the EpicDeca. But because it's the variables that you can't control, that made me one of 3 people to finish the EpicDeca, or some of these races that I've done around the world, that or even all the things that I've accomplished. It's because there are variables I can't control. And I have to be content and understand at that specific moment, this is where God wants me to be. Like, I went through this difficult time of my life for a certain reason. I have to understand sometimes where I need to be, and I don't need to understand why I am in this position. For example, to go do the EpicDeca, I didn't have the money, and I sold my house. So I was homeless when I came back from the EpicDeca. And now I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get fame. I'm going to be known around the world, and I'm going to get money and then sponsorship. And none of this happened. None of it happened. And even then, I got more negative than positive. People were telling me, you need to be in a mental institute for what you've done. People were rejecting me. And there was a lot of pride that came with it. And so what I learned after was that the pride had to decrease so that I could be more prepared to help other people. Because if my pride was up, then my guard would be much higher, and I would not be able to help other people. Or I would help people in terms of pride, which would just fuel their own pride. And then we would have pride square, or a pride.
Exactly. And I think one thing that I really like about that is you have to surrender to something that's bigger than yourself. And so for me and you, that's easy because we're Christians, we believe in God. But even if you're secular, even if you don't believe in God, surrendering to a purpose. If you don't, because what I always try to tell people is life incurs challenges. We are guaranteed the challenges. It was gonna be hard. It wasn't easy. And if you aren't pursuing or striving or building towards something, this is going to be a miserable drive. It's going to be a pretty hard life. And so that's especially where you're saying, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. People are calling me crazy. I sold my house and took a bet on myself. Why? Because God told you to. Why? Because your purpose told you to. And so where I definitely am akin to that with where my contentness comes from. It's like, I don't know a lot of the reasons why I do some of the things I do, but I just feel God tells me to. If it's a purpose in your life, whether it's a political purpose or it's an outreach purpose or whatever it is, if you don't have that purpose, I find you're not going to incur the suffering necessary to actually become a good person. Because why are you doing it? Life is already hard. You're going to suffer more without a cause. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm happy you did it because again, that's why we have you and the facet that you do. And sometimes your heart leads you to crazy places, and when you listen to it, you can actually be content in yourself because you know. I think about what Franklin Roosevelt. I think it was Franklin Roosevelt. What he says in the Man in the Arena speech, which is like, credit is to the man in the arena because he is separating himself from the people who never tried. They will live for the rest of their lives not knowing, could I have done it? Could I not have done it? The person who actually tries, he says, I could do it. I could not do it. And now you know. And so I think there's a piece to actually attempting and doing the crazy thing because, again, JD, you did, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so now I get contentment through doing meditation, prayer, and you also get contentment for me, it's reading the Bible because and for people that don't follow Jesus, it would be about following a certain set of values. So understanding your values, which the structure would create a certain form of discipline. The way I can frame it is, and maybe you can tell me more about your point of view on that, because you were in the military. Is that, to me, when I joined, I was 17 years old, so just a child, couldn't even buy a pack of cigarettes or drink my own beer without getting it from somebody else, and then I was given a gun, right? So here's the military for you. So I thought as a civilian, even as a kid, that as soon as I would join, I would get discipline immediately. You're getting discipline, you're getting resilience, and you're going to be working out, you're going to be in shape. Like, this is the military. And so I joined, and little did I know, I looked around, I said, there's a lot of people that are disciplined, and there's a lot of people that are not disciplined. And I try to figure out, okay, what's the problem? Like, there are people that are disciplined, not disciplined. Like, what is the cause? So what I discovered is that the military gives you a structure. It gives you that system. If you follow the structure, if you follow the system or those standards, if you follow the standards, then you acquire discipline. It's the same, except that the civilian is way more difficult. Switching from the military to the civilian, it's one of the most difficult part, because they're telling you, you need to separate military from civilian life. No, it took me years. Now you have to merge the two together and understand, okay, I was a soldier and I will always be a soldier, but I am also a civilian. So now you're merging the two together. And so now you're creating that structure. You're creating that system. But now you're in a civilian. You can do whatever you want. If I want to walk a certain way, I'm walking a certain way. I don't have someone telling me this is the way to walk. I don't tell, hey, if I want to wear a dress shirt, that's what I want to wear. But no one's telling me, your dress shirt is crooked over here, or no one's going to inspect my bed. Or so now what God gives you, or having this framework where you have values, you're able to be content because you understand that these are your values. You're going on a date. The girl doesn't fit the values. That's fine. I'm content with it. I had a fun time. It's okay. we're just parting ways and that's it. You're on your journey. I'm on my journey. You're not a Christian. I'm a Christian. There you go. You can go on your own, but I will respect my boundaries based on my system of value. I will do my best and I will be content when I please my God. My God is in the Bible. He gave me that set of rules. He gave me that so I can gain discipline, so I can gain resilience. And then when you look at it from a non-secular perspective or like a person that is not a Christian, then at least if you have it written down, all your values, okay, for me, it's easy because, well, I have it written down already. It's like, well, people died to give me that book. So it's already written down. Like it's like the cheat code of all. So,
Paid in full.
but for people that don't believe in Jesus, well, here are all these stories, or here are the stories that you can make up, or like the value system that you can make up and then create it based on your stories and your values, enumerate it, look at it and say, well, this is what I want. So now you're able to be content because you're living according to your values. So I would say pick your values before your goals, which if you pick your values before your goals, then you can pick any goal that you want, because any goal can become in my view, a sin. Any goal can become a sin, even as righteous as it may seem to everybody else. There's nothing inherently wrong in becoming a doctor, but it's how you get to becoming a doctor, and it's all the things that you're going to be doing. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's the values before the goal, and that will lead you to be content.
I think that's really well put, because especially what I think you're really drawing to is an authority structure. I report to an authority structure, and in the Army, it's easy because if you don't make your bed, that guy's going to come and put you in the front leaning rest, and you're not going to be able to move until you learn your lesson. And so the discipline is it's right in front of your face, and it's applied from somebody else, that authority structure. When you get out of the military, there is no authority structure. You're not likely living with mom and dad, or even if you are, mom and dad probably aren't going in your room and telling you what to do. And so I think that's something to where the ability for us to say that authority structure is God. So this is what's going to drive me. And what's going to fulfill me, surrendering to that for us, and anybody who abides by that, the more you surrender to that, I promise you, the more contentment you'll feel. But if you're not a Christian, one thing that I really love, it's a quote from Eric Thomas, and it's always just rang in the back of my head. He says, at the end of every principle is a promise. And so if you don't have principles in your life that you're adhering to, you're not guaranteed any fruit at the end of this. You're not guaranteed yields for all of your hard effort. But if I know I'm going to make my bed every single day, and I know I'm going to be on time to every single thing I do, and I know I'm going to have a good attitude, and you have these principles in your life that drive you, even if they're not religious, those will guarantee you things in your life. If you have just those four things we listed, well, you're pretty employable. You're probably going to be able to get a job. And that's a thing that lots of people struggle with these days. And so I think, if, like you said, you need to pick your values before you pick your goals. If I don't know my principles and what drives me, then I'm kind of just a bull in a china shop knocking stuff over. And I might get something done that I wanted to accomplish, but I'm more often than not going to cause chaos in my life than I am going to make it better.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Awesome. So what was the hardest part for you? Let me rephrase this question, because I had a distinct transition period where I went from the discipline and structure of the Army, and then I went and just sat on my butt and ate as much fast food as I could, because I was like, I'm free. I did my work. I did what I was supposed to do, and I quickly was met with the realization that you can't do that forever. And so I changed course back into a life of fitness, thankfully. But that was a distinct period of my life. Did you have a distinct transition where you had to kind of set a fire under your own butt to get back into structure, or was it seamless for you?
Seamless in the sense of moving from one transition to the next, but having different learning curves. So going from military structure where you're, or going from the military structure to the civilian, I understood, well, I want that this is where God wants me to be. So I had to pray about it. And so the seamless transition was more through faith. So at first it was about going from the military to the civilian and not really understanding what I would have to do, or it was more, I said, oh God, I need $10,000 just to go to college. Like, I just need that money. Here's on a piece of paper. And I was praying. And then when I stood up, phone rang, and there was this lady, and she said, we did this claim in the military, and we said no. We're so sorry. We made a mistake. You'll have the money in the next couple of days. We approved it. I don't know what happened. And then all of a sudden it was 10,000. Like, it was just, wow, okay. So I had to renew my mind daily. That's what was happening, is that every so often I would get these form of ways that God would show, okay, I still got you, but you still have to do the work that I called you to do. So again, my pride was huge. I wanted to, again, you want to leave the military, but you want to be highly successful financially, and you want everybody to love you, and you want everybody, and then you realize, okay, God is placing me at that specific moment, that specific state of mind, and I have to perform certain actions based on that. And that's when I got to the EpicDeca, and it was still difficult. Right? But it was at another level to sell your house so that you can go do a race for 2 weeks, to go to Hawaii, and then 2 weeks later you come back. And I was in a storage unit, and I remember being on an air mattress, using my jacket as a pillow with all my boxes around, sleeping in a place that is smaller than under a desk, and thinking, I'm the EpicDeca guy. Like, I finished this. Like, do you know who I am? And it was just, and I was thinking, this is how I'm going to inspire others. And that might be the platform for certain individuals. It just wasn't the platform that God could use, because it is prideful. And so my pride had to break down. My pride had to go out the window. And so it took me a while. It took me a while to really just let go and say, okay, this is, and even after I let go, it took some time to really build back up, to really, like, now I'm doing fine. I have a house. Like, I'm doing very fine, right? But it took a while for your mind to be renewed. And so when the Bible, in Romans 12:2, it says to renew your mind daily, it is a daily task that people have to go through. Your situation might shift in some instance. For me, it did when I reached college. Then all of a sudden I had that 10,100. Boom. But I still had to walk through my own desert, so to speak, to use the analogy of the Israelites in the desert. I still had to perform certain actions that would yield a certain results. And people want the magic pill that will get them to the other side immediately. Because, well, Neo had the choice between two pills, and he picked one. And because he picked that one, now he has unlimited amount of knowledge, because you can just have a chip in your brain and do whatever you want, and your entire life has changed like this. That does not happen. And there's not a story like anywhere that everything just changes from one day to another. All of these movies are showing, and there's a word for it. It's called a montage, right? Which is a French word to say or in English, the English word would be montage, right? Like, when you take.
I was talking about that.
I was seeing your face. I was thinking, well, he probably didn't get the. Yeah. So.
Catch that. I'm sorry.
That's funny. Yeah. So a montage, right, or in the French way, is when you take a bunch of clips, and then you're just putting the workouts of Rocky, and not showing that he trained for an entire winter, or he trained for an entire year to beat that guy in the ring. That would be a montage that a lot of people would know. And so when you're starting to look at the life, and you can even look at the Bible that way. You're flipping one page and you're going like, yeah, the Israelites were struggling for 400 years, and then you flip the next page and you're like, oh wow, there's deliverance right there. You're thinking, well, okay, that's the very next page. So for you, within the span of time, you just read 400 years of stories of the Israelites. You read the beginning and then you read the end. Congratulations. But in your life, it will last every single day. And so when I say renew your mind, is the Bible claim it, but I'm saying it right now, is that you have to do it daily. Daily, you are to renew your mind on what are your values. So it's not just about being in a gratitude state. It's contentment is understanding that there are some difficult situations. See, I was in a storage unit on an air mattress that I had to fold because otherwise I would not even have a place to write my book. That's what I was doing. And putting my jacket back on so I could go outside because it's cold in Canada. And so was I content? Well, it was a difficult moment, but I was content. Right? My pride was saying, no, you shouldn't be content. But I said, you know what? I am in the position that I am right now, and I will get to that next level when the time comes. I will work for that next level. And right now I am working on that next level because we are doing very well as a company. We're growing, we're expanding. I'm enjoying it. But I'm understanding that I have this past. I am understanding that, well, right now I'm at that stage. I can go lower, I can go higher. It's about, am I in the right spot at the right?
Yeah, and I think that's so important where you say renew your mind daily, because especially when you're renewing or reset the board is almost what I like to say, where you remind yourself that life is not gumdrops and rainbows and lollipops, and that it's actually pretty challenging and there's a good deal of suffering that you're going to have to begin to become content with. And if when you can reset your eyes on the fact that, oh, the suffering was embedded in, I was going to suffer as part of this, you can begin to take it on, lack of a better word, take it on the chin or rationalize it better. Because when you tell a story, as incredible as yours, where it's like, I'm having these personal battles in my head, all the while, you just did one of the most incredible things and you're living in a storage unit. And if you can't come to terms with the fact that this was going to be hard, this is going to be a decision you have to make daily, and even in the midst of making that decision, your life probably isn't going to get immediately better, but you need to make the decision anyways, daily. And I think that's something that gets so lost on people because they think, like you said, like something's going to come from on high, where as soon as I have this one thought or I do this one thing, all of my stresses will just go as far as the east is from the west. And that's never happened. I have to I have to dedicate myself to whatever principle, my faith, whatever it is, every single day, or I'm going to start buying my own lies unless I reset myself on what is actually true. And I just to touch on what you said, because I think it's really interesting that you brought up the Exodus, where the Israelites were fleeing Egypt, and there was a lot of despair. And in the midst of them having freedom, they were starving and hungry, and like, this is hard to talk about, but a lot of them wanted to go back to Egypt because that's how much suffering there was. That's how hard it is to wake up, bear your cross daily, and do the right thing, to fight for your own freedom, to purchase like your ability to do things in this life. And I just think about that often, where it's like, imagine they turned around. You have to stay driven. You have to stay faithful. You have to understand that the suffering is yours. That there was always going to be a degree of suffering. And I have to make a decision every single day, whether it's within myself or in my meditation or whatever it is. I have to rededicate myself to what matters, or I'm going to turn back to Egypt.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about putting a clear path as to where you want to go. Where are you right now? Understanding the facts. By lying to yourself, you are not helping yourself. If you are overweight and you want to lose weight, then you have to be understanding, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, and I'm honest with myself, this is what I want. If you are To me, I left the military. I had no education. The okay, yes, saving people's lives is fine. If you're a diver, there's no transferable skills, like critical skills, like from a military. Okay, yeah, there you go. You're doing basic training. Okay, and then they hand you a gun, and then they say, "Well, here you can take it apart and then go shoot down the range." Okay, is that transferable? None in Canada. They removed our guns. There you go. So what about what's next? Well, there you go. Here's a gas mask, and go into this room, and you have to put it under 9 seconds. Like what? What? Even at Subway, you really think that I'm gonna go and put this on my resume and say no? Maybe I'm gonna have some weird twisted LinkedIn way of twisting it and say, I am able to go under pressure into rooms that are like, okay, thank you, but they're not hard transferable skills where I was an electrician and now I am an electrician in the civilian. And very often, even in the military, um, they train you in the military and then they forget the civilian part, so that when you transfer to the civilian, you have to go through courses and training anyway. So you're transferring from one to the next. There will be challenges, and to me, I went through every single one of them, right? Going from the military to the civilian and not even having any transferable skills. So I wanted to go back, and God had cut that barrier. I would say that's why God, it's not written in the Bible. That's my assumption, is that's why God made them cross the Red Sea, is because, again, they can't go back. They understand there's no going back. Like, what are you going to do? Start swimming? There might have been that one guy, that one EpicDeca guy. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going back to Egypt, and maybe swam that, right? But
you have to be like you.
But most people are, again, not putting it in a clear paper and saying, look, this is where I want to go. I have faith that I can achieve that. It's realistic. You have to make a goal that is realistic. That's my goal. Realistically, what can I do? That's why people hire coaches. That's why people hire other individuals that have been in these shoes, is that you look at it and you say, look, this is my daily faith. I want to achieve this goal. Is this achievable? And you look at him and you say, no, it's not. So the worst coaches out there will look at you and say yes, and then just take your money. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Those are the worst coaches. So the worst thing, I mean, to me, it was a blessing that, well, it was a bad family life. So I was rejected, and then I was rejected at school, so bullied. It was a blessing. Why? Well, because I did not attach myself to criticism, like that critical side that others have. I just understood this is for them. So I joined the military. That's it. Was it hard? Yes, because you're going into the military. I did not want to go in the military, like at all. I was 17 years old. Why would I want to go in the military? But again, this was my choice. I preferred to go in the military than to go in the street. So that was pretty much it. Or get in debt with a degree that I did not even know what I really wanted to do. I did not have any backup plans. So I said, okay, military it is. But then moving from the military to the civilian is the same concept. It's constantly improving and moving forward. So the advice I would give everyone is to have a clear step, okay, and make it definitive. So within the next 1 year or 2 years, I will achieve X goal. I will have faith that this is what I want to achieve. And then you read it daily. If you read that, we're not just talking about some weird affirmation of think positive, everything's going to be positive in your life. I don't believe in this. I don't at all. Why? Because if I think I'm going to lose weight and I think I'm going to lose weight, no, if I don't do any action, I'm not going to lose weight. Like that's the end goal. You have to perform certain action in between. Understand there's the mindset between it, but you have to make it clear to your mind. You have to make it clear. So how do you do that? Clear, definitive goal within a time frame so that your brain understand, oh, oh, I don't have 5 years or 10 years to achieve that goal. I know that within that year, I have to achieve it. And because your brain is built, like your entire body, by the way, is designed for survival, then you are designed to get that hunger, which you mentioned, that purpose. That purpose comes, purpose is the byproduct, essentially, because you're essentially using you're picking your goal, which you already picked your value, by the way. You pick your goal, you enumerate it, you say, okay, I'm going to finish it within a set time frame. And then by trying to achieve it because of survival, then you end up finding that purpose that you were built for, because your brain is designed to achieve that goal. Like, you have to survive, so you're going to achieve that.
You're wired to survive, and the other thing that I always try to remind people is you're wired to adapt. You're supposed to be able to take variables. You're supposed to be able to incur the circumstances that life is throwing at you and be like, maybe I can't do an hour and a half workout. Is 45 minutes actually okay? Yes. So many people end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater on so many things, and where one of my favorite things where you're saying is the importance of being real with yourself and setting that goal. Because if I set some kind of crazy goal that I can't hit, and then I'm demoralized and quit because I'm not going to hit my goal, I only have so much time on this earth. And you said think about these, where I'm going, think about the goal. Another thing is too, if that's not working, think about the consequence. Everybody pays the piper eventually. And if I continue to furlough my payments, eventually the piper's going to come and knock on my door, and he's going to say, "Where's my money?" and if throughout your life you've been making payments, you've been doing a little stretching, you've been doing a little meditating, you've been doing some working out, and you've been doing what you're supposed to do, then whether it's old age and just aging, or maybe you have an injury that occurs, this isn't going to be as drastic because you did what you were supposed to do already, and the payments not going to be as bad. But if you did nothing and you continually put yourself in this cycle of 20 years of saying it's going to be different, it's going to be different, it's going to be different, well, the only thing that needs to be different is the decision making. Because if you don't change the decision making, start making payments to the piper, eventually you're going to be in a position where you can't. And whether it's you're dealing with the issues of aging, or some people, whether it's I'm 55 and I never cared about my health, and now I'm overweight and I can't use half of my muscles, and now my organs are failing, and now I don't feel like I can actually do anything about it. That, my friends, is the piper. So if you're not positively motivated, where it's like, I want to do great things with my life, some of us just want to live. Some of us just, exactly what you're preaching, JD, which is like this contentness, like to be okay with just existing in my life. Well, if you're not doing the things you're supposed to do, that will get taken. And I think that's an important thing for people to remember, especially as, I'm sure if you did the statistics, I can't imagine the health outcomes for young men and ladies coming out of the military is great. I can't, with all the nicotine that gets pushed on them, with all the energy drinks that gets pushed on them, with all the bad dietary habits that gets pushed on them. I have so many friends who got out, and I love them, but they have to be real with themselves, and they have to put that fire under their own butts and say, hey, I worked so hard for 5 years, but I've kind of stagnated for the last 20. And if I don't start doing something now, I can kiss the life goodbye. And I think we should all be on board of convincing our friends and peers not to do that.
Yeah, that's what love is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should get a coach or someone in your circle that challenges you and loves you enough to tell you, yes, you're in the wrong direction here. Yeah. And I know I've lost a lot of friends as a result of telling them that what they were doing was wrong. I totally understand, but I prefer to live this life, but not be responsible for being part of their decay.
And you don't have to be one big thing that I think of too is, when these people are in a decay, are you assuming that I've never been in a state of decay? Like, that's what these people are acting like you're saying when you're trying to help. Like, hey, I have decayed before. Like, I'm trying to help you not do what I did. And it just, they never seem to see it. I think it comes from a place of shame. There is no reason to be ashamed. Especially from our outlook, we're told to come as we are. We will be changed through the process. And if you continually come, you will be rewarded if you seek it out. And so, whether your shame is coming from, oh, I'm overweight and I don't think I can do it, or I've never worked out, I don't think I could do the EpicDeca. Did I pronounce it right? Perfect. I don't think I could do that. And, honestly, honest to God, JD, you're incredible. A lot of people probably can't because it takes a lifetime of work. And if you do not start where JD started, where this is where I'm saying we have windows in our lives. And the window will eclipse, and you will wake up at 40, you'll wake up at 50, you'll wake up at 60, and say, man, I wish I had some principles. Man, I wish I listened when they said you need to have your values first, because otherwise you're going to wither away and be just like everybody else. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with being everybody else, but I think most of those people are too ashamed to admit they need help. And they could be great. And I think, yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to mention, because we mentioned a lot of flaws today, and it's like you don't have to be ashamed of them. We all have flaws. I have flaws. I have things that I struggled with that threw me off, especially getting out of the military. We talked about overeating. It's really easy to get swallowed up by these things, but if you're not honest and real about addressing them, then you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, so I'm glad that we disagree on that. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we disagree on that for sure, because I think there needs to be some level of shame about, like, I am ashamed of certain behaviors that I did when I was in the military. The level of caffeine that I ingested, that was ridiculous. Ridiculous. You go on watch and then you take in an excessive amount of coffee, or and I'm ashamed of it, right? But it's understanding that, well, I have so much shame that I'm sharing it with people on a podcast. I'm open about it, and I don't want to go back to that stage, right? And I think that by adding a certain level of shame, understanding I'm content where I am, but I'm not going to be satisfied, is where people should be. Anyway, and again, it's in my views, because again, I am ashamed that I finished fifth. Why? Because I know, and I said it earlier, I know that I pushed business and other aspects of my life, which are important as well. But I know that I did not do my workouts completely at 100%. And because I did not do it at 100%, say, I think the fourth was a minute or two in front of me, because of all of these workouts that I was cheap with. I could have really pushed that extra 2 minutes. I understand that the first one was, I think, half an hour in front of me. So I understand that I would have not been first. Okay. So at least there's that. Okay. Whether I finished that cycling or that, oh, I pushed a little bit more today. Oh, definitely I'm going to finish first. I want to knock off half an hour on my half marathon. Yeah. Okay. I understand that concept, right? Like but at least I understand that I would have been probably fourth, if not third. And at that third level, then at least I would have been because the third and fourth were in front of me. I could have pushed harder. Now I gave my all in the race, but it's all of these workouts leading up to it. I know I messed up. So there's that understanding that I am such shame that I want to change myself. So same concept for Christianity. I am such ashamed of my sin. I am dirty that I want to repent and follow that authority. So there needs to be that level of shame. Now, back in the day, someone would, now again, I'm not advocating that we need to go back to that stage, but if someone would behave inappropriately, according to how everyone viewed God's word, which might have been right or wrong. We don't have to get into that debate. That person would be shamed into the city. Their business was not growing because they were ashamed. So we need to again have that level of shame, but use it in a way that has an action being driven out of that shame. So the way I can explain it is there is negative to negative, negative to positive, and then negative to constructive. So something negative somewhere happened in your life. That's it. Okay. For me, one of my best friends, Special Forces, we served together on multiple places and love the guy very much, but he passed away and he took his life and he said, okay, well, there we go. I'm throwing it away. Right. So he died, left his kids, his wife, and like now I went to the funeral. Show up at the funeral. Now that's something highly negative. Okay. And you can use anything that is negative in your life that happened. For me, it was coffee or something like that. Right. Like you can pick anything. So I'm using this example. So he unalived himself. That's negative. Now I could have used it and said, okay, negative to negative. So I start drinking. Right? That's a negative to a negative. It's still solving the situation in some capacity because yes, I am not thinking about it, but I'm numbing it. Okay. Which is a form, right? Then I can use it in terms of negative to positive, which a lot of people are doing, where I say he died, but here's all the great things, and I'm switching everything. But changing a negative to a negative is just amplifying the situation. Negative to positive is changing. It takes a lot of energy because energy can be created, can just be transferred. And so by transferring it, there is some loss somewhere. And so now you're going from negative to positive. Now, again, for him, for me, it was negative to constructive. And so what I did was I went to an event. I was at the funeral, and then there was an event. He was known around the world for being one of they were the only male that swam that strait twice. It was like a 17 kilometers. So what is that? Like 11 miles of swimming, tides and tide shift, current shifts, sharks, cold water. And so I took a crew, took a team, and then I swam that strait. Now just once, but not he's the only one that swam it twice. So we raised $65,000 for chronic illness kids to go to summer camp. Not to put back the spotlight on JD, but more on, okay, this is how I use a highly negative event that I don't think would trigger anyone to go into something that is constructive. Right. And so for him, what happened is that the reason why he went downward spiral is because there was no shame. For him, he was accepted in that environment that, again, he created. He definitely created it, and his wife knows it. Everybody knows he created that. Now, again, that might have been from it is definitely from the military mindset and the right. He developed some mindset in the military, and when he transferred from the military to the civilian, but because of the lack of shame and he again analyzes himself. So the way that we can do it is, okay, you know what? I am not in the state that I want to be. I am not in I want to be an engineer. That's it. Well, to become an engineer, you need to have a certain level of schooling. There you go. Is it difficult? Yes. Will it last long? Yes. I put on a piece of paper, this is what I want to do. I'm not at that level. Now, is it shameful that I am not at that level? I could have started a long time ago. I could have started when I was 17 years old. And if I look back, I'm thinking, I wish I would have started a long time ago. I wish I started. Well, that's still a certain level of shame. But instead of looking at it from a negative to a negative, saying, I should have started when I'm 17 investing in income properties, all of my money in the military, and now I would have at least 10 complex building, and I would have done. Instead of looking at it this way, you're looking at it from, I'm ashamed of what I have done. However, here's what I'm going to do from now on. I am not going to do and partake in this type of behavior. And then I'm going to use it in a way that is constructive. So not negative to negative. That's the easy route, and it will yield some negative results. And then not negative to positive, because that's very difficult, and you're still numbing regardless. You're still numbing from negative to construct. You're numbing it in a way where you're gradually pushing a positive outcome and using that. You can use it in a breakup as well. I've used it in breakups. I've used that mindset. I say, you know what? I'm going through a breakup. What can I do to channel that energy and use it as a catalyst? And you see this nowadays with a lot of kids, mainly guys, the guys go through a breakup and then they say, oh, I'm going to get real fit. Well, that is a form of way of saying, I am ashamed of what I did. I had a relationship with that individual that did not align with my values in the first place, which you should have just listened to David's podcast, and then you wouldn't have made that mistake. But okay, we won't harp on it.
That's awesome.
And then you get your values, and you were ashamed of that behavior, and now you have a choice. You can say, oh, I miss her so much, I'm just gonna go back home and start drinking my life away. And there are these guys that are drinking their life away, and I'm saying, okay, well, aqua can be any other type of numbing, right? Some guys, they just go into work. They just go into work, and then they just forget about reality and growing. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to work, or there's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine or drinking alcohol. There's nothing wrong. It's the excess of it and why you're doing it that is the wrong part, the lack of self-control that ensues with it. But there is that shameful part that yields a constructive, which then that guy goes to the gym and starts pumping iron and then understands, whoa, I feel great with it. Wow, what did I do? Well, here's the recipe. What you did was you transferred something negative, which you're ashamed of, and then you transferred it to something constructive. So having a certain level of shame that yield a result, okay? Not in terms of shame towards negative. The reason why we are saying shame or shaming others is wrong is because oftentimes what happens is that we are shaming people or shaming ourselves, and it yields that negative result.
Mm-hmm.
So you shame someone and then they go and start, right? You're fat. Okay. And then they start going and binging, right? So that's why there's this negative connotation. If you shift that mindset and you say, okay, I am, and when I say I'm fat, for me right now as an ultra triathlete, I am overweight. I understand that I'm overweight. That's because that is my standard. Why? Because my standard as an ultra triathlete is you have to lose as much weight as possible while still being functional. And so different levels. Well, if I consider myself right now as it is as bigger or fat, okay, that is me. That is me. Now, what will I do with that level of information? Will I use it in a constructive pattern? Yes. Why? One, I'm using it on a podcast to say, I am at the moment right now ashamed of my body. But what will I do to yield a constructive result? Not a positive result to say, well, my body is fat according to my standard as JD, but I have nice hair. Or, right, which is positive.
The subject.
Exactly. So, or changing from a negative to a negative, saying, well, you know what, there's nothing I can change, or I've tried everything, or all sorts of excuses, again, to yell the negative to a negative. I can say, here, I'm going on a podcast. I'm ashamed of my body right now. I will train. I will be better because I want to be at that level in my life. That's where I want to go. Why? Because when I look on my piece of paper, that's the type of body I want. That's the type of mindset that I want. That's the goal that I want. And based on my value as a Christian, well, here it is. I'm the temple of the Holy Spirit. I don't want the Holy Spirit to come into that type of temple where I'm undisciplined and lack of self-control. I don't want that. So therefore, based on my standard, then that's where I'm going to head, right? So that's where we would differ based on shape. Again, different types of ways of looking at it, but yeah.
And I think that's why it's super important that we hash out the conversation, because in the middle of it is a great, lack of a better word, construct in dealing with the shame. So where I say, hey, because where I fear is that people paralyze themselves more than they move forward, because people don't have the ability to practice what you just said.
Yeah,
but,
true.
But
yeah,
when they do, because this construct is here and it's never wrong. If you can take your negative And you can turn it into a construct where you say, I'm going to slowly work it into something that's in my favor. And I'm going to be disciplined and diligent and do everything I need to do. That will always yield fruit for you. And so I think that's why it's really important to have the conversation, because where my brain would have said is, make sure you're being nice to yourself, make sure you're not shaming yourself, so that way you're not paralyzing yourself. But even better than that, if you can have a hard conversation with yourself where you say, I'm not going to lie to myself and say I don't feel the shame, and I'm going to address it. Well, how do I address it best? Well, now you have the format. I take this negative, this thing that I hate or resent or that is ailing me, and I slowly bend it into my favor. I think that's like the Marcus Aurelius quote where he says, "The meaning of life is taking the hand that life deals you and playing it as if it were your own." And
there you go. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not going to crack out the way you want it to, and you have to change it. It's up to your mentality. But awesome. Well, then I think the next place that we'll go then is, what have you drawn from your military career? So reorient it back to our prompt. So from your military career, what were the things, because you said you were 17, you came there, you felt like you were going to seek discipline and that discipline was going to happen to you, and then you got there and half the people were disciplined, half the people weren't. What were the things that they taught you? Because I find that I have certain things in my life where it's like, if I did not learn that in the Army, I'd be screwed. I'd have no luck in terms of generating that discipline on my own. For example, I work out almost every single day. Why? Because I did in the Army, because it's important, because if you don't, you're not war ready. And in my brain, you don't age well. You don't age gracefully. But is there anything from your military career that has shined through and has helped you in terms of your discipline? Or have you totally started from scratch?
Well, you never start totally from scratch, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely the structure. So if you have a structure and systems in place, and also the mission, which I talked about earlier. So you have that mission, right? For the military, it's a mission. For the civilian, it's just a goal, right? You're going to do another race. For them, for the civilian, it's just another race. But for me, I'm looking at it as, okay, if I don't finish this race, if I don't prepare well, this is a battle plan. Like, I make sure that this mission is complete. And so there's the mission aspect, and then there is the structure and the systems in place. You need to set standards for yourself. This structure needs to be in place in order to acquire a certain level of discipline.
Awesome. I wholeheartedly agree. I think the thing that I agree with most is the mission. For me, I'm mission oriented. When I lose my mission, I become a derelict. It is not good. That's why it's so important I meditate every day. Because if I don't, then I lose sight of things. Yeah, JD, it is important to set a goal. It is important to aspire. Where are you going? Where is your next goal? What are you striving for? Do you have anything on your horizon?
For me, yeah, we're growing the company right now, and we are also expanding our philanthropic ways. So that's where we're heading right now. In terms of race, I just finished the Trail Half Marathon World Championship, but otherwise, I try to give back to the communities and help out as much as possible. And yeah, that's what I am doing right now.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, JD, I loved this conversation. I don't have anything left to ask you. I think we covered a lot of corners. And instead of putting us both through this awkward thing where we try to extend it for the 9 minutes we have, we might as well just call it a good product. But did you have anything you wanted to say? Any questions you wanted to ask? Anything you wanted to mention? Please feel free. I want to make sure you have time to.
Well, the only part that I would say is be serious what you want in life, to be very direct with what you want, and to add your values. Definitely be serious about your values, right? If you are a Christian, be serious about Christianity. Right? Even God says, I don't like he hates a lukewarm Christian, right? So you are to be serious with everything. Yeah. If you want to work out, be serious about your workout. this is life as a whole. So be serious about
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I completely agree. Be serious about it. Have your mission, have your structures in place. When you're dealing with shame, don't paralyze yourself. Turn that negative into a construct. This has been a great conversation, JD. I will make sure that all of your links and bios and your website and everything will be properly attached. But yeah, it'll be attached down below if you're watching on YouTube. And yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And yeah, we'll see you soon.